Inside, Jamie found the figure he least expected, his own mother, standing by the window, her face a mixture of sorrow, defiance, and something darker Jamie hadn't seen before. The final confrontation was no longer about family secrets or hidden truths, it was a battle for survival, for understanding, and for the soul of everything Jamie had ever believed in. His mother's voice was steady but heavy as she revealed the final twist no one saw coming. The lost sibling hadn't just been hidden or erased but had willingly disappeared to protect the family from a danger far greater than anyone imagined. They had been involved in a shadowy organization that controlled much of the town's power, a secret network that manipulated lives and wielded influence with ruthless precision. The song Jamie had sung, the old melody that had frozen his grandma's heart, was more than a family heirloom. It was a code, a message that held the key to dismantling the network but also a beacon that marked the lost sibling's fate. As Jamie processed the revelation, the tension snapped. The room was suddenly filled with voices, others who had been hiding in the shadows, watching, waiting for this moment. His childhood friend, the one who betrayed him, stepped forward, their face a mask of regret and resolve. They confessed their part in the conspiracy, explaining that they had been torn between loyalty and fear, forced to choose sides in a battle they never wanted to fight. The truth spilled out like wildfire, exposing layers of lies, sacrifices, and betrayals that rocked Jamie's world to its core. But there was no time for forgiveness or hesitation, the network's enforcers were closing in, ready to silence anyone who threatened to unravel their grip. In a heart-pounding sequence that blurred the lines between physical danger and psychological warfare, Jamie faced the mastermind behind it all, someone he'd trusted deeply, whose motives were entwined with love and control in a way that made the betrayal sting even more. Words were weapons, and every revelation cut deeper than any knife, forcing Jamie to confront not just the enemy but his own fears and doubts. The climax wasn't just a battle to expose the truth but a fight to reclaim identity, trust, and the possibility of redemption. Just when it seemed the darkness might consume everything, Jamie found the strength to use the song, the code his lost sibling left behind, as a weapon, a way to dismantle the network's hold and bring light to the shadows. The melody echoed through the estate, a haunting, beautiful defiance that shattered the silence and exposed the hidden enemies. Yet, as the dust settled and the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Jamie discovered one last twist that none could have anticipated. The lost sibling was not gone, they had been watching all along, orchestrating the final move from the shadows, their own fate a mystery that promised new challenges ahead. The story that had begun with a simple song had opened a door to a future where the past and present collided, leaving Jamie and all of us wondering what would come next. The sun rose slowly over the quiet town, casting a gentle light on the remnants of a story that had shaken the very foundation of Jamie's world. In the calm after the storm, the tangled web of secrets and lies began to unravel, leaving a fragile piece in its wake. Jamie stood outside the old family home, now stripped of its shadows and whispered fears, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settle into a bittersweet stillness. The lost siblings' return had shifted the course of the mystery in ways no one could have predicted, their presence a living reminder that some truths are never simple, and some families carry wounds that time can never fully heal. But amidst the chaos and betrayal, Jamie found something precious, an understanding that the past, with all its darkness and pain, could be faced, confronted, and maybe, just maybe, transformed into a new beginning. The song that had haunted their lives for so long now carried a different meaning, a melody of resilience, of survival, and of the fragile threads that bind us together even when everything seems broken. Though many questions had been answered, the identity of the lost sibling, the secrets behind the family's silence, and the dangerous network that had sought to keep them all in the dark, there were still shadows that lingered just beyond reach, mysteries that refused to be fully tamed. Jamie realized that life would never return to what it was before, but in that acceptance was a quiet strength, a willingness to live with uncertainty and hope. The people who had been hurt, betrayed, and lost along the way were beginning to heal in their own ways, and though the scars remained, they no longer defined the family's story. Instead, Jamie carried forward the lessons of trust, courage, and the importance of facing even the darkest truths head-on, knowing that sometimes, the greatest power lies not in uncovering every secret but in choosing how to move beyond them. As Jamie walked away from the old house, the familiar melody of that old song lingered in the air, soft, haunting, and full of promise. It was a reminder that stories never truly end, They evolve, echoing through the lives they touch and shaping the futures yet to come. And just when Jamie thought the chapter was closed, a subtle shift in the breeze, a whispered note carried from afar, hinted that the past was never truly gone, that the lost sibling's legacy and the shadows surrounding it might still hold secrets waiting to be discovered. The journey had changed Jamie forever, but it was also a beginning, a call to stay curious, to trust intuition, and to embrace the mysteries that make us human. In the end, it wasn't just about finding answers but about learning to live with the unknown, and in that, there was a quiet, enduring hope that would stay with Jamie and with all of us long after the last note had faded. Have you ever stumbled across a moment so strange, so unsettling, yet so deeply moving, that it stops you in your tracks and leaves you wondering if fate or something beyond explanation is at play? That's exactly what happened in a quiet little living room one ordinary afternoon, when a boy started to sing a song, an old song, a song from the past, one that his grandma suddenly froze at, her face draining of color as if a ghost from long ago had just walked in. If you've ever been touched by a song that seems to carry more than just melody, if you've ever felt like music held secret memories, hidden stories, or even lost connections, then you're going to want to stick with me here, because this story is about exactly that. It's about the mysterious power of a song, a family secret that has haunted a grandmother for decades, and a lost sibling nobody knew existed. Right now, I'm inviting you into this story, not just as a viewer, but as someone who will come to understand a secret that only a few have ever uncovered. So stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after the video is over, and you're going to find out why this song, this moment, was so much more than just a coincidence. Imagine this, a small boy, maybe no older than 10, sitting quietly on a couch with his grandma, a woman whose life is filled with stories, memories, and perhaps a few secrets she's held close for years. The boy begins to hum at first, then softly sings an old song, a melody that seems faded but familiar, the kind of tune you might have heard once or twice but never forgotten. But as soon as the boy hits the first line, the room changes. The grandma's expression shifts from gentle warmth to sudden shock, her hands freeze mid-air, and the music in the room seems to pause with her. That's the moment everything changed. It was the kind of moment that makes you stop and lean in closer, the kind that you don't want to miss because you sense something important is about to unfold. You can feel the weight of a family mystery pressing down in the silence that follows the boy's voice. What's so special about this song? Why did it hit a nerve so deep inside Grandma that she couldn't even move? Well, here's the truth, this wasn't just any old song. This was a song connected to a chapter of their family's past that nobody talked about, a chapter involving a sibling lost to time, memory, and perhaps tragedy. And this boy, just by singing, unknowingly opened a door that had been locked tight for decades. You see, music has a way of unlocking parts of our hearts and minds that words alone cannot reach, and in this case, it stirred a story no one was ready to face. As you watch this story unfold, you're going to feel that same emotional pull, the same urge to find out what happened to this lost sibling and why this song held the power to freeze a grandmother in her tracks. I want to take a moment to connect with you, because this story isn't just about one family or one song. It's about something universal, how we all carry pieces of the past with us, sometimes hidden deep beneath the surface, waiting for a moment to resurface. It's about the ties that bind us, the pain we hide, and the surprising ways the past can reach out and touch our lives when we least expect it. Maybe you have a family secret too, or a story you've been afraid to ask about. Maybe you've experienced a moment where a simple song brought back a flood of memories. If that's you, then this story is for you. And if you're just here out of curiosity, you're about to witness something so strange and touching that it will stick with you long after you close this video. The characters in this story, the boy, his grandmother, and the unseen presence of a sibling are all connected by more than blood. They're connected by memory, by loss, and by the mysterious power of music that can sometimes bridge the impossible gap between past and present. The grandma, with her weathered hands and quiet eyes, holds decades of pain and silence. The boy, innocent and unaware, carries the key in his voice. And somewhere in the shadows of this story lies a sibling whose story has been forgotten but whose memory is alive enough to change everything. I won't give away too much yet, because the real story lies in how these pieces come together, how a song can reveal what years of silence have hidden. As you watch this video, pay close attention to the details, the look in Grandma's eyes, the boy's hesitant voice, the melody that weaves through the air. Every note, every glance, every pause has meaning. You might even find yourself wondering about your own family history, the stories never told, or the memories wrapped in music. This is more than a simple song. It's a key to a past that someone tried to lock away. And it's about to unlock a truth that will surprise you, maybe even shake you. So why did the grandma freeze? What is the story behind that old song? Who is the lost sibling, and how is this boy connected to a past that seemed buried forever? The answers lie ahead, but I promise you, this is not just a story about loss, it's a story about connection, hope, and the strange, beautiful ways our past finds us again when we least expect it. Stay with me, watch closely, and be ready for a revelation that will pull at your heartstrings and maybe even change how you think about family forever. Now, before we dive deeper, I want you to do something for me. Really imagine yourself in that room with the boy and his grandma. Hear the first notes of the song. Feel the sudden silence when she freezes. Sense the tension that hangs thick in the air, like a secret waiting to be told. That moment, right there, is where everything begins. And trust me, what happens next will leave you breathless, questioning everything you thought you knew about family, memory, and the power of a song. I know you're itching to hear what the song was, why it mattered so much, and what the grandma's reaction means. And I'm here to tell you, every piece of this story matters. So don't scroll away or click off. You came here for answers, and I'm going to give you exactly that. But first, let me take you back in time, back to where this story really begins, a time before the boy was born, before the song was sung, when a family secret was born in silence. The journey you're about to take will make you laugh, maybe cry, and definitely think twice about the stories hidden in your own family's past. So buckle up, keep watching, and get ready for the truth behind the boy's song, the truth behind grandma's frozen face, and the lost sibling whose memory still echoes through time. This is a story you won't forget. Right after that chilling moment when the boy's voice trailed off and his grandma sat frozen, the quiet in the room felt heavier than ever. It wasn't just the silence that filled the space, it was the weight of unspoken memories and questions that hung in the air like a thick fog. You see, this wasn't a one-off event. This moment was the result of a series of strange things that had been unfolding quietly, almost unnoticed, in the days leading up to that afternoon. The boy, named Jamie, was not just an ordinary kid humming a forgotten tune. He had been restless, almost distant, in a way that didn't quite match his usual bright, curious self. His mom had noticed him spending hours in his room, flipping through old photo albums and asking questions that seemed out of place for someone so young. He even started asking about family members she barely talked about, which made her uncomfortable, but she figured it was just a phase. Maybe he was trying to connect with his roots, or maybe he just picked up on something in the air that she wasn't aware of. Jamie's world had quietly shifted, and nobody really understood why. What made this even more mysterious was that Jamie's connection to his grandma had always been special. They had this bond that felt timeless, like they could share a secret language with just a look or a touch. Grandma had always been a source of comfort, a storyteller who kept the past alive with her gentle voice and warm hands. But lately, something had changed in her too. She seemed distracted, nervous even, like she was guarding something just beneath the surface. There were moments when she'd glance toward an old, dusty trunk in the corner of the room, the one no one ever dared to open, and then quickly look away, as if afraid to let the past seep back in. These subtle signs, the little pauses and the heavy silences, were easy to miss but impossible to ignore once you knew what to look for. The family's history was quietly unraveling, and the old song Jamie sang was the spark that ignited it all. To add to the intrigue, Jamie's mother had recently reconnected with a distant cousin, someone who had been out of touch for years and carried their own share of stories and secrets. This cousin had mentioned a sibling who disappeared long ago, but no one in the family talked about it openly. It was like a ghost story, something whispered but never confirmed. Was this lost sibling just a rumor, or was there more to the story? And why now, after all these years, was this song stirring up these old memories? These questions swirled around Jamie's family, pulling everyone into a web of curiosity and suspicion. But here's where things get even more tangled. The boy's best friend had recently introduced him to a local history group, one that dug into the small town's forgotten stories. Jamie had been eager to learn, visiting old libraries, archives, and even talking to elderly neighbors who seemed to know more than they were willing to share. The past was closing in on him from every direction, and the lost sibling's story seemed to be threaded through every new clue he uncovered. Yet, as we all know, every mystery has its red herrings, and this one was no exception. Just when you think you're getting close, the trail twists and turns. There were whispers in the neighborhood about a feud between the grandma and an old family friend, someone who had once been like a sibling but had disappeared under strange circumstances. Some said this person held grudges, others hinted at secrets too dark to speak aloud. Jamie's own parents seemed oddly evasive when questions about that time came up, quickly changing the subject or giving vague answers. Was there something they were hiding? And what about the old song itself, where did it come from? Some said it was a lullaby passed down through generations, while others claimed it was a melody tied to a tragedy that had fractured the family long ago. Each theory added another layer to the mystery, keeping anyone who dared to dig deeper on edge. The tension didn't just live in the past, it was very much alive in the present. Jamie found himself caught in the middle, pulled by curiosity but also feeling the heavy weight of a secret he didn't fully understand. His grandma, once his safe harbor, now seemed like a fragile puzzle piece that could shatter at any moment. The community around them was quiet but watchful, as if everyone sensed that the calm surface was about to crack open. And then there was that song, so simple, yet so powerful, that kept replaying in their minds, echoing like a whisper from a time long gone but never truly forgotten. It was as if the music itself was a bridge, connecting Jamie, his grandma, and the lost sibling in a way none of them could have predicted. What really happened to that sibling? Why had the grandma's reaction been so intense, so frozen in shock? And how was Jamie, just a boy with a voice, tied to a family secret that had been buried for decades? The answers lie buried beneath layers of silence, half-truths, and memories that have faded but never disappeared. As you keep watching, the pieces will start to come together, but be prepared, the truth might not be what you expect. Every moment in this story holds a clue, every character a possible motive, and every note of that old song a key to unlocking a past that refuses to stay hidden. Stay with me, because we're only just beginning to uncover what really happened in this family's tangled history. Just when Jamie thought he was beginning to piece together the fragments of his family's shadowed past, things started to unravel in ways he never could have imagined. It's as if the closer he got to the truth, the more the walls closed in around him, tightening like a noose on a secret that someone desperately wanted to keep buried. It all began one evening when Jamie found an old, faded notebook tucked inside that dusty trunk in his grandma's living room, the same trunk she always avoided. The notebook was filled with handwritten notes, dates, and a few scraps of yellowed paper with names crossed out and strange symbols drawn in the margins. For Jamie, it was like uncovering a treasure map, a first-hand account of what might have really happened years ago. This was the kind of key evidence that could finally unlock the mystery of the lost sibling and explain why the old song triggered such a powerful reaction from his grandma. But before Jamie could even fully process what he was holding, the notebook disappeared. One moment it was there, resting on the kitchen table after he'd shown it to his mother, and the next, gone without a trace. No explanation, no note, no hint of where it might have gone. When Jamie asked his mom about it, her face tightened, and she told him firmly to stop digging into things that were better left alone. It wasn't a gentle warning, it was the kind of sharp edge in a voice that made him freeze. There was fear there, a fear that had never been present before. That's when Jamie realized this was bigger than a family curiosity. Someone didn't want the past to come to light, and they were willing to act to keep it hidden. Trying to make sense of it all, Jamie began noticing subtle changes around him, strangers watching from across the street, hushed phone calls that stopped when he entered the room, and an old family friend named Mr. Collins who had suddenly taken an intense interest in his questions. Mr. Collins had always been a quiet presence at family gatherings, someone who offered stories but never pried too deeply. But now, his smiles seemed forced, his questions too pointed, and his presence a little too close for comfort. Jamie couldn't tell if Mr. Collins was a friend trying to help or someone with his own reasons to keep the family's secrets intact. This uncertainty made Jamie cautious, but it also fueled his determination to find the truth. How do you trust someone who might be guarding the very secrets you're trying to uncover? Digging a little deeper, Jamie stumbled on a story that no one in the family had mentioned before, a bitter betrayal that had fractured relationships and left wounds that never fully healed. It involved his grandma's closest friend from decades ago, someone who disappeared abruptly after a scandal that was whispered about but never discussed. Rumors suggested that this friend might have been connected to the siblings' disappearance, possibly even involved in hiding the truth. The betrayal wasn't just about family loyalty, it was tangled with trust, love, and perhaps a betrayal that cut deeper than anyone realized. This revelation added another layer of complexity to the mystery, making Jamie question what really happened and who was telling the truth. Every answer seemed to raise more questions. On top of that, Jamie began receiving strange messages, anonymous notes slipped under his bedroom door, warnings to leave the past alone and stop looking where you don't belong. At first, he thought it was a prank, but the notes grew more personal, referencing things only someone close to the family would know. The tension built steadily, transforming from mere curiosity to something that felt dangerous. Jamie was no longer just a boy exploring a family story, he was caught in the middle of a hidden conflict, with shadows from the past threatening to pull him under. Even his closest friends noticed the change, urging him to back off, but Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was right within reach if only he could break through the barriers keeping it locked away. And just when things seemed impossible, the most unexpected twist came. An old photo surfaced, showing Jamie's grandma, the lost sibling, and a mysterious figure standing together, smiling, in a place no one recognized. The photo wasn't from a family album but from a collection held by a local historian who had kept it under wraps for years. The discovery pointed to a hidden connection, a secret event that no one had talked about, a reunion that was supposed to bring answers but instead sparked more questions about loyalty, deception, and what really tore this family apart. Who was that figure, and why had the photo been hidden? Was this person an ally or yet another puzzle piece in a story filled with lies? The deeper Jamie dug, the more the line between friend and foe blurred. The past was no longer just history, it was alive, restless, and watching. Every step forward felt like walking on thin ice, unsure who would support him and who might be working to stop him. The truth wasn't just about a lost sibling or an old song anymore. It was about betrayal, trust, and the lengths people will go to protect the secrets they hold dear. And just as Jamie was beginning to unravel the tangled threads, the story took a sudden turn. A phone call came through to his mother late at night, one she refused to talk about. The next day, Jamie found a cryptic message on his voicemail: "Some doors are better left closed." The message wasn't signed, but the chilling tone was clear. What was waiting behind those doors? Who was warning him and why? The mystery wasn't just about uncovering the past anymore, it was about surviving the consequences of the truth. So here we stand, on the edge of revelation but caught in the web of secrets, lies, and unexpected obstacles. Jamie's journey is far from over, and the answers he seeks are buried deeper than anyone imagined. The lost sibling, the frozen grandma, the old song, they're all pieces of a puzzle that might change everything once it's complete. But will Jamie find the courage to face the truth, or will the shadows of the past silence him forever? Stay with me, because what happens next will challenge everything you think you know about family, trust, and the price of secrets. Just as Jamie tried to process the chilling voicemail warning him to leave some doors closed, the ripple effect of his discoveries began to reach beyond his own small world. What Jamie didn't realize was that the tension wasn't confined to him alone. Someone else in his family was also being pulled into the mystery in a way that threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew. That someone was his Aunt Lisa, a woman who had always seemed like a steady presence, practical, no nonsense, the kind of person who kept the family grounded in difficult times. But recently, Lisa had started to behave strangely, distant and guarded, as if she too was carrying a burden no one could see. Then, one evening, while Jamie was still grappling with the phone call, Lisa found an old letter slipped under her door, eerily similar to the notes Jamie had been receiving. It was typed, cold, and threatening, warning her to stop digging before you lose more than memories. The letter held a postmark from a town miles away, somewhere unfamiliar and disconnected from their family's quiet neighborhood, which only added to the unsettling feeling that a shadowy force was reaching into every corner of their lives. Lisa didn't tell Jamie about the letter right away. She was protective, not wanting to scare him, but the weight of the warning gnawed at her. She began quietly investigating on her own, reaching out to old contacts, trying to trace where the letter came from. What she uncovered was even more confusing: a connection to a man named Harold, a figure who had been a part of the family's past but whose true intentions were murky at best. Harold was a man whose name popped up again and again in whispered stories, someone who had once been trusted by the family but who had disappeared after a financial scandal that left reputations in ruins. What made it stranger was that Harold had recently resurfaced, or at least his name had, appearing in court records for a civil case involving property disputes tied to the family estate. Lisa suspected that Harold might be the puppet master behind the threats and the erased notebook, a man desperate to keep his secrets hidden and maintain control over the family's assets and reputation. But proving any of it was another matter entirely. Meanwhile, Jamie's mother, caught between protecting her son and confronting the shadows from her own past, started questioning people she hadn't spoken to in years, including old neighbors who seemed reluctant to share their memories. Some hinted at a feud involving Lisa and another relative, one that had turned bitter and personal over money and trust, hinting that family loyalty had long since been replaced by suspicion and resentment. This made Jamie wonder if the conflicts he was witnessing were just symptoms of something far deeper, a fractured family where everyone had their own motives and secrets, making it impossible to know who could truly be trusted. Even the boy's best friend, who had introduced him to the local history group, seemed to be acting strangely. Jamie noticed him whispering on the phone, casting uneasy glances his way, and disappearing at odd times. Was this friend a genuine ally or someone with his own reasons to keep the truth hidden? The lines between friend and foe were blurring faster than Jamie could keep track of. Just when the tension seemed unbearable, another twist arrived in the form of a newly discovered document from a public records archive that directly contradicted everything the family had believed about the lost sibling. The document suggested that the sibling's disappearance was not an accident or a tragic loss, but possibly a deliberate act tied to a hidden betrayal involving a family member no one suspected. This revelation sent shockwaves through the family, forcing everyone to re-evaluate their stories and memories. What was once thought to be a victim's tale suddenly became a tangled web of suspicion, betrayal, and cover-ups. The old song Jamie sang now seemed even more like a cipher, a coded message pointing to truths that could dismantle the family's carefully maintained image. With the stakes climbing higher by the day, the atmosphere around Jamie's family grew colder and more strained. Conversations ended abruptly, trust eroded in whispers behind closed doors, and every glance carried suspicion. Jamie and Lisa found themselves caught in a tightening web, unsure whether their own family was protecting them or betraying them. The threats, the mysterious letters, the contradictory evidence, it was as if someone had rewritten the rules of the game, leaving Jamie to navigate a maze of secrets where every turn brought new dangers and doubts. And through it all, the haunting melody of that old song lingered, a reminder that some stories refuse to stay silent, no matter how much we wish they would. Just as Jamie was starting to question if he'd ever find a safe place to stand, a final, unexpected message arrived, a call from an unknown number, with a voice that chilled him to the bone. The caller claimed to have information about the sibling, but warned that revealing it could change everything and put those he loved in danger. And just before the call ended, a whispered warning echoed through the receiver: "Not everyone in your family is who they seem to be." The line went dead, leaving Jamie with more questions than answers and a growing fear that the truth might be more dangerous than he ever imagined. The pieces of the puzzle were still scattered, the motives unclear, and the game far from over. What secrets still lurked in the shadows? Who was really pulling the strings? And how far would someone go to keep this story hidden? As you watch this unfold, keep questioning every character, every clue, and every whispered warning, because nothing here is as simple as it seems. The truth is waiting, but it's tangled in lies, betrayal, and mystery that refuses to be untangled easily. Stay tuned, because the next twist could change everything, and you won't want to miss it. The uneasy feeling that had been quietly simmering inside Jamie suddenly exploded into something much darker, much more urgent. It started with the sensation of being watched, not the casual, passing glance of a neighbor or a stranger on the street, but something deeper, colder, as if unseen eyes were tracking his every move. At first, Jamie tried to shake it off, convincing himself it was just his imagination playing tricks, fueled by the strange notes and warnings that had been haunting his family. But the feeling only grew stronger with each passing day, gnawing at the edges of his mind and leaving him restless and jumpy, like a cornered animal searching for an escape. He noticed unfamiliar cars parked near his house at odd hours, and once, while walking home from school, a man who had never been in the neighborhood before followed him at a distance, melting into the shadows whenever Jamie glanced back. The weight of paranoia settled in his chest, squeezing tight until every step felt like it might be his last free one. Then came the moment that shattered the fragile sense of safety Jamie had left. His Aunt Lisa, the one person he trusted to quietly help navigate this tangled mess, vanished without a trace. One morning, she simply didn't show up to the family breakfast, nor did she answer her phone. Panic rose like a wave as Jamie and his mother searched their home and called every number they could think of. Lisa's car was still parked in the driveway, untouched, but there was no sign of her anywhere. It was as if she'd been swallowed by the earth itself. The police were called, but with no evidence of foul play, the case risked being filed under a missing persons report with little hope of resolution. For Jamie, it felt like a warning, clear and unmistakable, that he and everyone close to him were in real, immediate danger. The safe lines that once connected his family were unraveling, snapping under the pressure of secrets and shadows that no one dared face head-on. Jamie's mind raced with questions that twisted and turned like a storm. Had Lisa's disappearance been connected to those threatening notes? Was Harold, the mysterious figure from the family's past, involved? Or was there someone even closer, someone within the family, who was desperate enough to silence anyone who got too close to the truth? Fear was no longer just a whisper in the back of Jamie's head, it had become a roaring thunderstorm that rattled his bones, kept him awake at night, and clouded every decision he tried to make. The boy who once sang that old song now found himself trapped in a nightmare where every shadow could hide an enemy, every familiar face might mask betrayal, and every secret uncovered only dug the hole deeper. The weight of this realization pressed on Jamie like a physical force. He found himself questioning everything he'd been told, doubting even his own memories and instincts. The very people he loved seemed capable of hiding monstrous truths, and the line between protectors and threats blurred beyond recognition. At times, Jamie wondered if the lost sibling's story was a trap, one that had been set long ago to ensnare anyone curious enough to seek answers. The haunting melody of that old song felt less like a key and more like a curse, echoing through the silence of a family torn apart by silence, betrayal, and fear. Each note seemed to remind Jamie that some pasts were better left buried, but his heart wouldn't let him stop. As the days passed with no sign of Lisa, and the strangers lurking in the background grew bolder, Jamie's world contracted into a narrow, suffocating space where trust was a rare currency and every knock on the door sent his heart into a frantic beat. Friends who once offered comfort now cast suspicious glances, and Jamie found himself retreating further, caught between the desperate need to uncover the truth and the terrifying possibility that doing so might destroy everything he held dear. And then, just when he thought the darkness couldn't deepen any further, an envelope arrived at his doorstep one cold morning. Inside was a single photo, grainy and worn, showing Jamie's grandma standing with a man Jamie didn't recognize, someone whose face was half hidden in shadow but whose presence radiated menace. Scrawled on the back were just 3 words, "You don't know." That message wasn't just a warning, it was a promise that the story was far from over, and the danger was only just beginning. Jamie stood at the edge of a precipice, staring into a future where answers could save or destroy him, where every secret uncovered might be a step closer to salvation or to his own undoing. The mystery was still alive, breathing and watching, and Jamie knew with a sinking certainty that to survive, he had to keep moving forward even if it meant walking blind into the darkness. Just when Jamie felt the weight of fear closing in and every lead seemed to pull him deeper into a dark maze with no exit, the story twisted in a way that shattered everything he thought he knew. It wasn't a dramatic showdown or a sudden confession, it came quietly, unexpectedly, through the voice of someone he had trusted without question. His mother. One evening, after days of tension and whispered worries, she sat Jamie down in the dim light of the living room, her hands trembling just slightly, her eyes heavy with a truth she had buried for years. The words she spoke pierced the fragile thread of certainty Jamie clung to. The lost sibling, the whole mystery that had haunted their family like a ghost, wasn't the innocent victim or tragic figure everyone believed. In fact, the sibling hadn't disappeared, they had been hidden, deliberately erased from public memory, because their story was far more complicated and dangerous than anyone had ever dared to admit. Jamie's mother revealed that the lost sibling had a secret identity tied to something powerful, something that stretched beyond family drama into the world of hidden alliances and dangerous choices. She explained that this sibling had been involved in a covert struggle, a battle over family legacy, money, and a truth that could shake not just their family, but the very community they lived in. The old song, the frozen reaction from Grandma, the cryptic notes, they were all connected to a code, a message meant to protect or warn against forces that Jamie had never imagined. His mother confessed that many of the mysterious figures, the strangers watching, the threatening letters, weren't just random threats but part of a larger web of people working to keep the family's darkest secrets from being exposed. And more shockingly, she admitted that she had played a role in keeping the siblings' story hidden, not out of malice, but to protect Jamie and the rest of the family from consequences she feared none of them could survive. The realization hit Jamie like a thunderclap. The foundation of everything he'd believed, the innocent curiosity about a lost sibling, the simple search for truth, crumbled beneath the weight of betrayal and protection. The people he thought were allies might have been deceiving him all along, and the enemy might be much closer than he ever imagined. Suddenly, that mysterious man in the photo, the old friend Mr. Collins, even his Aunt Lisa's disappearance, all took on new meanings. What if the danger wasn't just about uncovering a past, but about exposing a present threat that had been lurking in plain sight? What if the story wasn't about loss but about a secret so explosive it had rewritten history itself? Jamie's mind raced to piece together the clues from this new perspective. The notebook, the photo, the hidden messages, they weren't just random artifacts, they were fragments of a puzzle tied to a covert legacy, one that challenged everything about his family's identity and trust. And with this revelation, Jamie began to question not only the motives of those around him but also his own role in a story far bigger than he'd ever imagined. The mystery wasn't just a chapter from the past, it was a living, breathing force that had pulled him into its fold, with stakes higher than he could have ever feared. The truth was out there, tangled in lies and shadows, waiting to be uncovered, but at a cost that no one had yet been willing to pay. As the weight of this new reality settled in, Jamie realized that the answers he sought might come with consequences that would change his life forever. The game had changed, the rules rewritten, and now the question wasn't just who to trust but whether the truth was something he wanted to know at all. The story was no longer just about a boy singing an old song or a frozen grandma's reaction, it was about uncovering a secret legacy that challenged every assumption and left Jamie standing on the edge of a dark, uncertain future. And as the shadows lengthened, the old song played on, its haunting melody a reminder that some mysteries are far more dangerous than they seem, and some truths are better kept hidden. As the weight of his mother's confession settled over him like a suffocating fog, Jamie found himself caught in a relentless storm of impossible choices, each more wrenching than the last. The fragile illusion of safety he had once clung to shattered completely, replaced by a harsh reality where trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. His thoughts swirled endlessly, battling between the desperate need to protect the family he loved and the burning desire to uncover the truth that now felt like it could either save them or destroy everything. Every familiar face now held a shadow, every whispered conversation a hidden meaning, and Jamie knew that moving forward meant stepping into a dangerous game where the stakes were more than just answers, they were survival. The ultimatum came unexpectedly, not from a faceless threat or a shadowy stranger, but from someone whose betrayal cut deeper than any external danger, his own Aunt Lisa. After days of silence, she resurfaced, but with a cold, hard edge Jamie had never seen before. Lisa didn't come with explanations or comfort, but with a warning that chilled Jamie to his core. She made it clear that digging any deeper would no longer just put Jamie at risk, it would endanger everyone he cared about, and if he chose to continue, he'd be forced to face consequences he wasn't prepared to bear. It was a crossroads that demanded a choice no child should ever have to make: protect himself and the fragile remnants of his family, or risk everything to shine light on secrets that some were willing to kill to keep hidden. The emotional turmoil tore Jamie apart from within. On one hand, there was the suffocating fear of losing those he loved. The absence of Lisa already felt like a wound that hadn't begun to heal, and the thought of losing more was unbearable. On the other, the injustice of silence, the weight of being denied the truth about the sibling who had haunted their lives, pushed him forward with a relentless hunger for answers. His nights grew restless, plagued by memories of his grandma's frozen expression, the cryptic song that had started it all, and the haunting feeling that every step he took was being watched by invisible eyes. In the quiet moments between daylight and darkness, Jamie questioned everything. Could he ever trust his mother again after learning how deeply she'd hidden the truth? Was Lisa's warning a sign of care or control? And most frighteningly, was he ready to face the fallout of pulling the family's darkest secrets into the light, knowing that the consequences could tear them apart for good? The lines between right and wrong blurred as Jamie wrestled with his conscience. His growing paranoia turned friends into suspects and allies into potential enemies, forcing him into isolation at a time when he most needed support. Yet, the flame of truth within him refused to be extinguished, burning brighter with every cryptic note, every shadow that moved just out of sight. The stakes had never felt higher. It was no longer just a story about a lost sibling or a mysterious song, but a battle for identity, for survival, and for the fragile threads of family that might never be the same again. And with Lisa's ultimatum ringing in his ears, Jamie stood at the edge of a precipice, knowing that whichever path he chose would change the course of his life forever, and that the next move could be his last. Jamie's world exploded into chaos faster than he could keep up. The pieces he'd been desperately trying to fit together suddenly revealed a picture far more dangerous and sprawling than he'd ever imagined. It wasn't just about his family, his lost sibling, or even the cryptic song anymore. No, this was a conspiracy that reached deep into the community, weaving through people he trusted, places he thought were safe, and secrets buried under decades of lies and half-truths. The realization hit him like a freight train when, in the middle of a late-night search through old family records, Jamie stumbled upon a file that wasn't meant for his eyes, a dossier thick with names, dates, and connections to powerful figures in town, some of whom had been friendly faces in his life. People who had smiled at him, given advice, or offered support now suddenly looked like actors in a sinister play, their smiles masking agendas that could destroy not just Jamie's family but anyone who dared to get too close. The adrenaline surged through Jamie's veins as the true scale of the conspiracy unfolded before him, a tangled network of hidden alliances, betrayals, and cover-ups spanning decades, all centered around a secret inheritance tied to that lost sibling, whose existence had been erased from every official record. But the stakes were even higher. This wasn't just about money or reputation. It was about power, control, and a ruthless effort to silence anyone who threatened to expose the truth. And in the most gut-wrenching betrayal, Jamie found out that someone he had leaned on through all this turmoil, his childhood best friend, the one who had helped him dig through the past, was working against him. That friend had been feeding information back to the shadowy figures behind the threats, manipulating Jamie's trust to keep the conspiracy alive and unchallenged. The crushing weight of this betrayal sent Jamie reeling, but there was no time to collapse under the shock. Danger was closing in fast. Messages grew more urgent, footsteps echoed in the silence behind him, and every phone call felt like a countdown to the next move in a deadly game he was forced to play. The lines between friend and foe blurred so completely that Jamie didn't know who to trust anymore, only that every step forward risked everything he cared about. His family's fractured past was now a powder keg ready to blow, and Jamie was caught right at the heart of it. The pressure to uncover the truth twisted tighter around him with every moment, threatening to suffocate the hope he clung to. Every secret revealed only peeled back another layer of danger, and the haunting melody of that old song echoed louder in his mind, a chilling reminder that some truths come at a price too high to pay. As the night deepened, Jamie realized he was no longer just chasing a lost sibling's story, he was running against time, against shadows that sought to erase him and everyone connected to the secret once and for all. And with betrayal cutting the deepest, he understood that surviving meant playing a game where the rules were written in fear and deception, and losing was not an option. The conspiracy was bigger than he, bigger than his family, and Jamie had just stepped into a war where trust was the deadliest gamble of all. The next move would either shatter the silence forever or bury the truth beneath a mountain of lies. And with the weight of everything pressing down, Jamie knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. The night was heavy with rain, the kind that seemed to wash away any lingering hope, as Jamie stood on the edge of everything he'd uncovered, everything he'd fought to understand. The shadows around the old family estate felt alive, twisting like restless spirits eager to claim the secrets Jamie had finally brought to light. His heart hammered in his chest as he made his way toward the dimly lit study, where the last piece of the puzzle was waiting, the evidence that could expose the conspiracy, reveal the truth about the lost sibling, and unmask the real enemy who had manipulated their lives for years. Every step echoed like a countdown, every breath a silent prayer. The house, once a place of warmth and memories, now felt like a trap closing in, thick with tension and unspoken threats. Inside, Jamie found the figure he least expected, his own mother, standing by the window, her face a mixture of sorrow, defiance, and something darker Jamie hadn't seen before. The final confrontation was no longer about family secrets or hidden truths, it was a battle for survival, for understanding, and for the soul of everything Jamie had ever believed in. His mother's voice was steady but heavy as she revealed the final twist no one saw coming. The lost sibling hadn't just been hidden or erased but had willingly disappeared to protect the family from a danger far greater than anyone imagined. They had been involved in a shadowy organization that controlled much of the town's power, a secret network that manipulated lives and wielded influence with ruthless precision. The song Jamie had sung, the old melody that had frozen his grandma's heart, was more than a family heirloom. It was a code, a message that held the key to dismantling the network but also a beacon that marked the lost sibling's fate. As Jamie processed the revelation, the tension snapped. The room was suddenly filled with voices, others who had been hiding in the shadows, watching, waiting for this moment. His childhood friend, the one who betrayed him, stepped forward, their face a mask of regret and resolve. They confessed their part in the conspiracy, explaining that they had been torn between loyalty and fear, forced to choose sides in a battle they never wanted to fight. The truth spilled out like wildfire, exposing layers of lies, sacrifices, and betrayals that rocked Jamie's world to its core. But there was no time for forgiveness or hesitation, the network's enforcers were closing in, ready to silence anyone who threatened to unravel their grip. In a heart-pounding sequence that blurred the lines between physical danger and psychological warfare, Jamie faced the mastermind behind it all, someone he'd trusted deeply, whose motives were entwined with love and control in a way that made the betrayal sting even more. Words were weapons, and every revelation cut deeper than any knife, forcing Jamie to confront not just the enemy but his own fears and doubts. The climax wasn't just a battle to expose the truth but a fight to reclaim identity, trust, and the possibility of redemption. Just when it seemed the darkness might consume everything, Jamie found the strength to use the song, the code his lost sibling left behind, as a weapon, a way to dismantle the network's hold and bring light to the shadows. The melody echoed through the estate, a haunting, beautiful defiance that shattered the silence and exposed the hidden enemies. Yet, as the dust settled and the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Jamie discovered one last twist that none could have anticipated. The lost sibling was not gone, they had been watching all along, orchestrating the final move from the shadows, their own fate a mystery that promised new challenges ahead. The story that had begun with a simple song had opened a door to a future where the past and present collided, leaving Jamie and all of us wondering what would come next. The sun rose slowly over the quiet town, casting a gentle light on the remnants of a story that had shaken the very foundation of Jamie's world. In the calm after the storm, the tangled web of secrets and lies began to unravel, leaving a fragile peace in its wake. Jamie stood outside the old family home, now stripped of its shadows and whispered fears, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settle into a bittersweet stillness. The lost siblings' return had shifted the course of the mystery in ways no one could have predicted, their presence a living reminder that some truths are never simple, and some families carry wounds that time can never fully heal. But amidst the chaos and betrayal, Jamie found something precious, an understanding that the past, with all its darkness and pain, could be faced, confronted, and maybe, just maybe, transformed into a new beginning. The song that had haunted their lives for so long now carried a different meaning, a melody of resilience, of survival, and of the fragile threads that bind us together even when everything seems broken. Though many questions had been answered, the identity of the lost sibling, the secrets behind the family's silence, and the dangerous network that had sought to keep them all in the dark, there were still shadows that lingered just beyond reach, mysteries that refused to be fully tamed. Jamie realized that life would never return to what it was before, but in that acceptance was a quiet strength, a willingness to live with uncertainty and hope. The people who had been hurt, betrayed, and lost along the way were beginning to heal in their own ways, and though the scars remained, they no longer defined the family's story. Instead, Jamie carried forward the lessons of trust, courage, and the importance of facing even the darkest truths head-on, knowing that sometimes, the greatest power lies not in uncovering every secret but in choosing how to move beyond them. As Jamie walked away from the old house, the familiar melody of that old song lingered in the air, soft, haunting, and full of promise. It was a reminder that stories never truly end, they evolve, echoing through the lives they touch and shaping the futures yet to come. And just when Jamie thought the chapter was closed, a subtle shift in the breeze, a whispered note carried from afar, hinted that the past was never truly gone, that the lost sibling's legacy and the shadows surrounding it might still hold secrets waiting to be discovered. The journey had changed Jamie forever, but it was also a beginning, a call to stay curious, to trust intuition, and to embrace the mysteries that make us human. In the end, it wasn't just about finding answers but about learning to live with the unknown, and in that, there was a quiet, enduring hope that would stay with Jamie and with all of us long after the last note had faded.